friends, it's Cake Over Keto time. Thanks so much for finding the time to tune in today. This is your safe space for the next 20-ish minutes where we talk about the reality of disordered eating and how to find peace and freedom from food rules, self-doubt, anxiety, and fear of weight gain, amongst others. Let there be no regret, shame, or self-punishment when we eat. I'm Mel Wakeman, registered nutritionist, intuitive eating practitioner, non-diet counsellor, and lover of hot Ribena right now, the full sugar version. I specialised in disordered eating and recovering from chronic dieting, body dissatisfaction, and eating disorder recovery, all through a weight inclusive and compassionate lens. So please keep your ears plugged in. What's coming up in this episode is right around the corner. Let's talk healing and riding the ups and downs of recovery in this episode. And often the $6 million question I'm typically asked is, what does it even look like? Oh, and how long does it take? And will I get there? And the answer I'm going to give may sound like I'm sitting on the fence. That's because recovery is very personal. If you're listening today, you probably already get there is not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to anything. And whether you are in recovery from disordered eating or an eating disorder, it looks different for everybody. In part because our eating behaviours sit on a kind of spectrum, and the line that exists between disordered eating and an eating disorder is very thin, and it moves depending on the individual. So where someone's in trouble point might be is going to be unique to them. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about what recovery might or can look like, how it looked for me and how it has looked for some of my clients. But I also want to talk about what recovery is not. Some of this stuff can be a bit hard to hear, but please keep listening. This is important. And so I'll talk about the qualities we need for recovery and the obstacles we have to overcome. But fear not, you already have this inside you. Now is the time. I'm going to help you use them and take back your life. And in the pick and mix at the end, I'm going to be providing some key points, tips and suggestions. And I feel like this part of the podcast is almost evolving into a toolkit for you that you can dip in and out of. So if we get interrupted by a phone call or the Amazon delivery guy comes in, I want you to come back. And I also want to ask you something at the end. So please hold out. So let's get the kettle on, find a cozy spot. Let's settle down for the next 15-20 minutes. In the meantime, if you'd like to follow me on social media, please do. I'm on Instagram as Mel Wakeman and I'm on TikTok as Cake Over Keto. Feel free to drop me a message. I'd love to carry on the conversation after this, and I promise I will get back to you and answer those questions. I imagine you already know that healing is always going to be hard. Recovery is hard, I'm not going to lie. And I probably don't need to tell you that, whether you're moving away from diets or you're kind of working through trauma. Perhaps you've tried multiple times, or perhaps because you've heard about other people's journeys. But I want you to know, as do the folk who have already ventured down the path and made it, life in recovery is worth every single difficult step forward it takes. For me, I get the feeling too scared to begin, even though you feel stuck and you don't like being there or wanting to quit because it's just exhausting and you've had enough. I know that uncertainty about which voice is your own and which is your dieting voice or your eating disorder voice. And I know about the fear of gaining weight versus the fear of going back to kind of that hell. Facing those fears are necessary. But before we get into this anymore, I want you to think about what you want your recovery to look like. What do you want your life to look like without your eating disorder ruling and determining everything that you do? And this may be a really scary thought and question, because if disordered eating is all you know or all you can remember, then you may not know or have an idea about what life could look like. If you feel your identity is being defined by your eating problems, let me say this really clearly. You are not your eating disorder. You are not your disordered eating. You deserve to live a life free from anxiety and guilt, and you deserve to live a life with more laughter and joy. It's just not that black and white. Because true recovery from an eating disorder or disordered eating is about asking yourself what you really want and giving yourself permission to go get it. Here are some examples I want to share with you from my own recovery and taking some examples from some of my clients. So for them, it was saying yes to meeting friends at a restaurant, not feeling sick when the food arrived, and being able to concentrate on and enjoy the conversations we had. Stopping spontaneously for a sausage roll just because it smelled good when it walked past the shop. Going out to eat without checking the menu beforehand so that you could easily find the lightest option. Allowing myself to feel contentment, not panic with a full belly. Sleeping soundly because my body was nourished. Feeling energized because my body was nourished. Being able to walk by a mirror without immediately judging myself. Wearing a lovely bright red dress instead of black. Putting on a swimming costume without hating myself. Living free from obsession. Using my scales to make cakes, not weigh my broccoli. Going to university and living a life I never thought I could dream of. To accept and care for myself rather than punish myself by trying to escape my body. Do you think you could write your own list? Keep it somewhere where you can see it. Check on it regularly. You'll likely need these reminders of why you chose this path. And I also want to be honest with you. We also need to look at what healing your relationship with food and recovery from an eating disorder is not. We live in a world that promises instant results, threaded through obscurity. This journey is a brutally honest one. So let's begin with that. Linear. Recovery is definitely not linear. As much as we may want to take those baby steps along a very methodical path, taking each increment as it comes, each day getting a little bit easier, it's just not realistic. Just like life, healing and recovery are filled with ups and downs. The shit hitting the fan, not seeing things coming round the corner. It looks like 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And sometimes it's tears falling down your face as you try to eat food, or taking deep breaths to calm your fluttering heart as you wear shorts or a vest in public for the first time in years. Recovery is about falling down 10 times and getting back up 11 more. Number 2, perfect. Recovery won't be perfect. It doesn't mean that your life is going to become perfect. Now, it's not for me to say you'll never have thoughts returning about trying a diet again, having a really crappy body image day, or experiencing a shed load of self-doubt. In my mind and experience, you can't eliminate all traces and connections of those coping strategies and, unhealthy behaviors, because the way they are attached to your memories and how they are intertwined through past versions of yourself. But recovery will mean that you'll be better equipped to deal with them if and when they happen. And you will realize how strong you are. You will feel less scared of having emotions and feelings and thoughts for the rest of your life. You will have more capacity and resilience for coping with difficult times. And you will see that hurting yourself is not a good way to survive and stay alive. So no, recovery doesn't mean your life will be free of pain, but it means you'll be able to go through and experience whatever life throws at you without losing yourself along the way. Being in recovery gives us the ability to withstand the ups and downs of life. It's about learning to feel everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And number 3, recovery is not all about your weight. And although many folk might picture someone with an eating disorder as maybe a young, white, very skinny female, the truth is you cannot tell if someone has disordered eating or an eating disorder based on their body. Because people of all weights, shapes, sizes, gender, ethnicities, cultures struggle with eating disorders. And yes, some will need to weight restore, but in many cases, serious eating disorders are not accompanied by extremely low weight. In fact, 94% of people with an eating disorder are not underweight. And this does not mean that an eating disorder is any less serious. So people with atypical anorexia, for example, who are basically average weight or live in a bigger body, still have problematic thoughts related to their bodies. They have problematic thoughts about their weight, and they have problematic thoughts about food. And regardless of anyone's size, an eating disorder is a serious mental health illness that can greatly impact someone's life, career, relationships, and so can disordered eating. And I think historically too much emphasis has been placed on weight. We live in a fat-phobic, weight-biased society. And I think this gives the expectation that if weight is restored, whether that's up or down, but particularly up, that somebody is recovered. But we have to go beyond the numbers and explore the issues that go far deeper. So yes, this path requires courage, strength, resilience, and at times to surrender. And you already have these qualities because you are a survivor. There should be no shame attached to having a difficult relationship with food or your body. It shows you are a fighter. You have fought like a Trojan, trying to cope in the only way you knew how. And I think you are so very brave. Eating disorders are still massively stigmatized. As much as people might think, they are not a choice, and we need to talk about them because 16% of adults will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. 50% will experience their first symptoms as an adult. And some 75% of women, some surveys suggest, have disordered eating. So you are not alone here. Now, Hope Virgo did an amazing post some time ago on the joys of healing and recovery. And I admire her work so much and her. And I want to share what she said about things to look forward to. And it may kind of mimic some of the stuff that I started with, but I also wanted to end on a really positive note. So she says, thinking about things other than food, laughing into the night, getting takeaways when you can't be bothered to cook, sitting in the sunshine with sweat melting on my stomach while sipping an ice cold drink and eating an ice cream. More energy, spontaneous meals out, being present, having more bag space as there was no need for Tupperware pots, singing in the shower, entire mornings in bed, saying to a friend when eating out, you choose, laughing and eating with my family, sitting back whilst others cook, travelling and trying new foods, eating food off the side of a road, not literally, I guess, choosing food I actually want, more freedom, staying up late with friends, talking, eating delicious snacks, buying unplanned food or drinks to warm myself on a cold winter's morning, being able to chat through a meal without adding up food amounts. I think they're really cool things. Things are obviously very personal to her, but again, this could be something I'd really recommend you think about for yourself. And give yourself time to process this before reflecting on your own journey. Look through the compassionate lens before you think what you want, not should, do next. And I'm here to provide some ears and a shoulder if you need someone to bounce your thoughts off. Now hang on just for a moment, my pick and mix is coming up next, where I'll give you some tips I think you'll find helpful if you're at the beginning of this stage. Okay, here's a list of tips you might find helpful in starting recovery from disordered eating or an eating disorder. They're kind of tools and things that I've collected over the years. And many of these I'm a huge advocate for. Get yourself a journal. I'm going to do another episode on this. This is about exploring, documenting, capturing, noticing in a place without judgment, where you don't need to edit. And it can be very personal to you. You don't need to share it with anyone. And you can hide it. Buy one of those kind of wheat bags that you stick in the microwave to warm up, to help in those moments when maybe you're just feeling really tense or your stomach feels uncomfortable and you're in need of some soothing. Talk and remind people, if you need to, that just because you might not be doing the things that aren't helpful for you doesn't mean that everything's okay. People that don't or haven't experienced disordered eating or an eating disorder generally don't get it. So allow space to explain to them when you feel you have the energy. Have some go-to mantras. Things like, my weight doesn't define me. I can do hard things. It's okay to sit in the shit. I'm enough. I have a whole collection, and actually, do you know what? I'm going to put some in the show notes. So click on that and I've got, I think there's like 80 odd of them. Unpack your food rules and start breaking them. If you have fear and anxiety about eating certain foods, if certain foods trigger you, the only way to overcome that is to face those fears. This is where you might need help, going to seek a professional. Again, I'm here and available. You may need help shifting your perspective on these foods. Keep eating. Definitely keep eating. Eat regularly, eat enough, especially if you think you ate too much earlier or yesterday. Realize it's going to be hard and uncomfortable. Sometimes we need to find a way to embrace the pain, knowing that what's on the other side will be amazing. And it's okay to ask for help to learn how to deal with that discomfort. Remove the emotions from the food. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? I know it's not, but it really is just food. Our stories and our beliefs tell us otherwise. Again, this may be something to get help with. Research for non-diet podcasts like Cake Over Keto and recovery podcasts. Find people to follow who provide real life lived experience, valid, what's the word I'm thinking of, kind of reputable information, and make you feel like you belong, and they certainly don't make you feel bad. Learn, commit to researching and learning. Surround yourself with the right people. Those people who believe in you when you experience those times when you can't believe in yourself. And remember, you deserve help. You may need to learn to advocate for yourself, and that's not necessarily nice, but it's worth pushing for. Again, you may well find that having someone to advocate with you or having support will be helpful. Then we come back to make lists of your reasons for getting well. I think these are so helpful. Each step forward in the right direction is another day closer to your freedom. I promise you it's worth it. So that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to carry on the conversation, then email me at mel@awakewomannutrition.com. Come find me on Instagram, or if you're a lurker on TikTok, search for Cake Over Keto and you'll find more eating disorder content. Now, before we go, I'm getting to the point where I'm beginning to think about season 3 next year. And I wondered, do you have any areas or questions that you'd like me to address or talk about? I already know I want to do more on binge eating. I also do want to do some stuff on neurodiversity and ADHD, but I'm taking requests. So if you have an idea, just send it to me via a direct message on social media or email me. And of course, I will credit you. Thank you. Take care of yourselves. Know that you are enough always, and I will see you next time. I'm talking about diabetes next time, so make sure you subscribe and you won't miss it. See you next time. Bye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.